I think the best investment I made, without a doubt, is investing in coaching for myself. I've always found that like finding people that are ahead of you in the curve and can provide not only coaching, but mentoring and guidance and share what they've done has been super important.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Career Coaching Secrets podcast. I'm your host Rexhen, and today's guest is Matt Cross. Matt is an executive coach, leadership strategist, and the creator of The Subtle Shift, a framework that helps leaders grow by changing how they think, speak, and lead. With over a decade of experience coaching leaders at every level, Matt is known for his ability to turn small communication shifts into major performance breakthroughs. And he helps leaders cut through complexity, build alignment, and influence with clarity, not by doing more, but by leading more effectively. So it's a pleasure for me to have him on the podcast today. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Hey, thanks for having me, Regen.
So I want to know from the beginning of this, what is the story with your coaching business? How do you get started? What inspired you to start a business and then to become a coach first and then start your own coaching business?
Yeah. So I have to tell you, there have been so many subtle shifts that have led me to where I am today. And, when I think about the inspirational moments and how all of us kind of find our way to coaching, I think there's so many of them that occur in our lives. But whenever I'm asked this question, I always go back to a moment when I was 16 years old. And if you don't mind me sharing a little background story, when I was young, I fell in love with the game of golf, but I wasn't very good. In fact, I tried out for the high school golf team in my town and didn't make it. I wasn't good enough. I didn't have a good enough score to get on the team. So I begged the coach. I asked him, I said, could I at least just practice with the team? And I think he felt bad for me, and he ended up saying yes. And I was able to go and practice with the team. And within that first season, I had an incident where he asked me to play with him, the coach, and our captain of the team, who was a senior at the time. And I don't know what happened, but something shifted in me in that day. And I had this kind of I don't know if you've ever experienced it, Regen, that experience of peak performance where you drop into a flow state. And I don't know if you know anything about golf, but I would shoot like 8, 9 over par pretty much every time I would play. I couldn't break through that barrier. And on this particular day, I fell into flow and I actually shot 3 under par for 9 holes, which was like, I didn't know what the heck was happening. Like, it was an out of mind, out of body experience. Everything just happened perfectly. I even hit one out of a bunker in front of a green at one point. And it was just this moment of real realization, like awakening in me, where I realized like, wow, I'm capable of so much more. And that incident way back when I was 16 years old, it really kind of opened up for me a fascination with psychology and peak performance and how we as people can master the inner game. I became obsessed with that. By the way, didn't break par for another like 10 years at golf, but it was a moment in time that I just knew there was something more within me that I was capable of. That incident led me to pursue a master's degree in organizational psychology. That led to 20 years of leadership roles in a variety of different businesses and industries, where I was responsible for leading massive initiatives in terms of change as a consultant and also as a leader within some of these different organizations. And I had a great career going, really was enjoying it. But realized somewhere around 2011, I had kind of a realization that all of this big, massive change that we were pushing on people in our organizations, it often doesn't work. And it led me to realize like not only what does work, but what role in this change did I enjoy the most? And it was without a doubt sitting down with leaders, doing one-on-one work, trying to influence and convince people of the benefits of those changes, and also trying to help people do it in the best way possible. That incident led me to looking into coaching as a role. I thought, I'd really like to do more one-on-one work. And I had a great job in government. I was very, very comfortable. But I enrolled in Georgetown's leadership coaching program, and it was a completely transformational experience. And it brought me back to that moment when I was 16, where I realized, like, wow, there's just so much more to life than the rigid, structured way that we approach change and leadership within our organizations, and decided to pursue that. And after I finished the program, shortly after, decided to leave my very comfortable leadership position and start my own coaching practice. And I've been at it now for 12 years. I've been at it ever since. It's been best change I ever made in my life. So
Interesting. So it's been 12 years. By the way, do you still go golfing?
I still do. In fact, I'm playing right after this.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, headed out, taking the afternoon off to play a little golf.
Well,
Yep.
that is so interesting. I really like golfing. In Albania, we don't have golfing yet, but yeah, that is so interesting. I get to play sometimes when I travel to Italy, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a great game. Teaches us a lot about ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, and especially it's like so nice. Like you just go into a beautifully like landscape area, so it's kind of like very nice to be outside. And yeah, cool.
Yeah,
But
without a doubt.
12 years, and what do you find like right now when you're working with your clients, when you're going through your coaching journey with them? What is
Yeah.
that most rewarding thing that you get out of it?
Yeah, without a doubt, I think the most rewarding piece of it is seeing the change and the transformation that people go through. But I also want to add that, like, the thing about coaching that's amazing is when you're in an organization, you're dealing with the same people over and over and over again. And one of the things I've found most rewarding about coaching in general is just the opportunity to work with so many different people from all walks of life. I've had the ability to work with Fortune 500 executives at pretty cool nonprofit organizations. I've worked with entrepreneurs, business owners, and I've even had the chance to work with a Navy SEAL, which I thought was one of the most intimidating and cool experiences of being a coach. And just seeing the variety of people and what actually is helping them discover and find what's the best version of them,
Mhm.
what can help them perform at their peak, and what's going on for them in terms of the inner game. I have to admit, a lot of people come to me with outer game issues, right? Like, I need to delegate more, or I'm not productive. That, an organization might think they're not productive enough, so let's get them a coach. But there's always something inside that's going on that needs to be dealt with. And I don't consider myself a therapist by any means, but
Mhm.
we do definitely venture into that world of understanding the psychology, what's going on in people's minds, and helping them make those subtle shifts within their minds to help them really be fully self-expressed and do their best work in the way that works best for them. So I mean, the journey has been incredibly rewarding, but day in and day out, I'm kind of a breakthrough addict, and I love seeing people have those big shifts that happen in their minds that lead to big things in the world.
And right now, you're working mostly with executives and leaders, right?
Yeah.
Is there any specific industry, specific demographic, or like a certain issue that defines these people? How would you describe the ideal client profile for you?
Yeah. I look at, like, my ideal clients are people that are at significant transition points in their lives. So I don't look at it from the perspective of like an industry or a particular line of business. I don't even look at it in terms of like demographics. I look at it like, somebody has a significant transition they're about to undertake. It may be they're plateauing in their career and they're trying to figure out what to do next. Maybe they're stepping into a new leadership role, taking on more responsibilities, and they need to operate in a little bit different way. Sometimes people are having pretty significant identity shifts. They're dealing with who they thought they were, and they're growing as adults in different phases of their development and thinking starting to like see the world differently and want to operate differently. So I think of my ideal client as anyone at a key transition point in their career. Another thing I'll add to, Regen, is folks that are typically, dealing with that. They're feeling overwhelmed. They're wrestling with the complexity of it all. And despite often being high performers, they're realizing that that idea that Marshall Goldsmith so eloquently wrote in his book, what got you here won't get you there. And there needs to be a breakthrough, a change, a shift in them in order to really live a fulfilling life, lead in a sustainable way, and be more effective as leaders.
For anyone, if there's any executive listening to this podcast and they wanted to learn more about how the program works, how would you break it down? Is there a certain length people typically work with you? Is there a certain program, or is it all customized for a specific person that is working with you? How would you describe that?
Yeah, I always describe my program as tailored to meet their specific needs, but there are a few elements I typically will include. So usually any work I do with people begins with some sort of a informal or a formal 360 assessment. I use a tool called the Leadership Circle that I'm sure many other coaches are familiar with, or I'll do behavioral interviews and meet with different teams, different people within the team to really understand what's going on for that leader, how they're showing up, what their strengths are, and what their greatest opportunities for growth are. I typically will work with people for 1 year engagements. I think the work of transformation really takes time. And when we try to squeeze it into 3 months or 6 months, it really doesn't do it justice. So I feel really blessed and lucky to have gotten my practice to the point where I can kind of demand that we're going to work for a long period of time. So most of my clients do sign up and work with me for a year. Often they'll continue for a second or a third year as well. And wanting, additional support as we continue on. But I usually always start with that kind of 360 assessment to really understand the person. And then we meet regularly via Zoom, similar to how you and I are, and have conversations on a regular basis. There was a time where I met with people, I was very rigid about every other week we're going to meet. Now we're going to meet once a month. And if you need me in between, you kind of have an all access pass. You can reach out and get on my calendar. So that's the main coaching piece and how I tend to operate.
Interesting. And when it comes to, you also explain kind of like what are the issues typically that these executives are having and that you're helping them with. And when it comes to identity shifts, I can imagine that is something that definitely does not happen in 3 months. So yeah, it makes
Yeah.
sense that it has to be a year. Even like when you think of habits, I think what is it that mathematically it needs to be at least 90 days before it becomes a habit. Some say 30. I don't think 30 is enough. So yeah, it does need a lot of time. Where do people right now find in terms of like, this is a question mostly for coaches who are listening. What marketing
Yeah.
channel is working well for you right now?
I feel bad because I wish I had something. I'm a bit obsessed with marketing and I feel like I'm studying it all the time and trying to find an edge there. But honest to God, what works most is just good old fashioned relationship building. Most of my business comes from referrals and recommendations and continuing work with people. So I had a great mentor and coach I worked with years ago who told me, he said, and I remember at the early stages when I was really first couple of years struggling to get started in this business. And he told me, he said, how this really works, Matt, is you build some relationships with people who are in organizations and they tend to move to other organizations throughout their career and they take you with them and you become kind of like adjunct faculty who's there to support them in different ways. And I found that to be very true. I think a lot of coaches, when we're getting started and looking at marketing, we spend a ton of time trying to market ourselves on LinkedIn, trying to figure out how to brand ourselves and doing all these amazing exercises, but we don't have any clients yet. We don't really have any experiences, and you can spend a ton of time. And I think you're putting the cart before the horse often. So what's really, when I think about my whole coaching journey too, and how I've marketed myself, it is just a series of subtle shifts. It's, adding a little bit in here, playing a little bit in LinkedIn, putting posts out there. You'll see I'm posting a lot more on LinkedIn right now because I have a book coming out. So I'm trying to market that and get that in front of people. But when it comes to my coaching services, the bulk of that is really word of mouth and referrals.
And it's also like a testament of it's actually working very well because people are willing to recommend you. It's kind of like for you, it serves like as a test to know that everything is working well since people are still referring, everything is going great.
Yeah.
And sometimes, do you have a system for make sure that people do refer you?
It's fun. I'm glad you asked that because that's something that often gets missed. And I even miss it and I keep revisiting and going back to is you have to ask,
Hmm.
right? It's when you get that email that's like, oh, thank you so much. That was so helpful. Have the courage to go back and say, hey, I'm so glad you had such a great experience. Would you be willing to put a recommendation up on LinkedIn or write a testimonial that I can put on the website and make it easy for them, give them some samples.
Hmm.
And doing that has been incredibly helpful in my generating referrals. There was gosh, I wish I could remember the specific podcast, but there was a podcast episode I listened to years ago with Dean Jackson, and he was talking about how he organizes and engineers referrals and how it needs to be a system, and we need to think about it in that way and put the effort in. And, really just think about when somebody comes to you and refers someone to you, first you have to ask, you have to obviously thank them. And what people typically do is they might send a little thank you gift or something. But what he talked about, and I thought this was an interesting but subtle shift in how we would think about this. He said, when someone refers you, they're doing you a favor, but they want to look good. Doing it for, not to treat people poorly, but like they're doing it for their own little selfish reasons. They want people to go, that candy store Regen told me to go to was great. And Regen feels good about that. Right. So he makes the point of, and I try to practice this as best as I can. When someone refers you, don't just send the gift.
Hmm.
Reach back out and say, hey, I spoke to Bob last week and we had a great conversation. Thank you so much for introducing us. I'm going to take really good care of Bob. And then, reach out 3-4 weeks later and say, hey, Bob signed up and we're working together. And then reach out, and just kind of keep them involved in the process. And I find that really, really works because it fosters a longer term relationship. And that person who's referred someone to me wants to refer more.
Yeah, yeah, because of the experience that they've had referring, yeah, especially. And for people who don't get referrals from, most of the time it's not that they don't want to refer you, it's mostly that just don't have you top of mind all of the time. So yeah, you have to follow
Exactly.
up.
Yeah,
Cool.
without a doubt.
Now, what are your goals right now with the coaching business? So you mentioned you have a book coming up. When is that coming out?
Yeah. So my book, thanks for asking, Regen. My book is coming out on September 29th, and it's available now for pre-order everywhere books are sold. The
Okay.
title of it is Subtle Shifts. I actually have a copy here. Simple Strategies for Sustainable Success.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a 2-year project in the making, and I'm thrilled to get it out there. But my goals kind of long term is I feel like I've succeeded at building a good coaching practice. And I'm looking at like, how is it going to evolve over the coming years? And to be honest with you, I'm looking beyond just doing coaching. I'm looking at how I can move from one-on-one to group coaching,
Mm-hmm.
do more one-to-many delivery. There are only so many hours in the day. And I've had days where I'm sitting on Zoom, standing here at my standing desk all day, and it can be exhausting. So I'm trying to find ways that I can connect with people in a one-to-many situation more often, looking to do more speaking, and also codifying my thinking through my writing. So Subtle Shifts is the first book of many that I'm hoping to write. I've got a few in the pipeline. But, my idea, I want to share this with everyone too, because I think it's important. We as coaches are taught, if you've gone through any, like I went through the ICF training program through Georgetown, we're taught that, it's the client's agenda and we're working with what they bring to the table. And I totally agree with that and believe in that. But what happens as you coach for years and years and years is you realize there's a voice inside of you that you've learned to quiet down in the spirit of listening and supporting and helping others. But that voice keeps perking up inside of me. So my goals are, how can I get that out, that message, those messages out into the world? And that's what I'm really looking forward to over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and so right now, when you think about it, so you mentioned obviously every coach has this issue where if they're just doing one-on-one coaching, there's only that many hours you have on a day. So when you think of growing or when you think of scaling your impact, it becomes challenging. First of all, the book is very good because more people that potentially might have even not afforded, or like the company didn't pay for your coaching, they get to experience some of it through the book. So you kind of like get to impact more people that way. And group coaching also a good idea, but But right now, do you have a team that helps you out, or is it all you? That's it's kind of like the bottleneck.
Yeah, I'm definitely a bit of a bottleneck still.
Mhm.
About 2.5 years ago, I hired my first practice manager, and she's been with me for a couple years. And by the way, that was a dramatic pivot for me. Was I wish everybody says this. I wish I had done it way earlier, and but it's true. She's made a dramatic improvement in my life, my having time with my family, and also just being a bit of a strategic thinking partner. But I'm realizing now at this phase, I need to expand that. So I'm looking to bring in people to support with more marketing, also to do a little bit of systematizing of a lot of the things I do. I should mention too, I don't only coach, I do a lot of workshops, and I will do group programs with leadership teams. So like a great example of that is I have a leadership team that I'll do coaching. I meet with them regularly throughout the year, but then I also meet with them as a group and do group sessions. And I found that to be incredibly helpful for stabilizing the business and just bringing in more higher revenue sources. But all of that machine requires a little more support. And I'm definitely at the point where I need to expand that a little bit.
Oh, and I just meant to ask you if you, since you're working with executives, do you also tend to work with their teams whenever needed?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I also want to talk with you about investments. You have investment, part of it on the team. You're investing right now in marketing your book, having your book out. What are some investments that you've made in the coaching business that you feel like they were very good investments, or could be also terrible investments that you'd like to share?
Yeah, yeah. Let's start with some of the funny, like ones that seem like they'd be great, but they're not.
Hmm.
There's been I've invested a lot of money on like marketing training. And what's funny is a lot of it's regurgitated. It's the same stuff over and over again. But I'm a bit stubborn, so it takes a while to sink in and eventually I'll learn from it. So I don't discount all of it, but it's I wouldn't call them bad investments, but they didn't result in a quick payoff. Another one that I'll kind of throw out there that's questionable is a lot of technology type investments. I've always been very interested in tech and computers and ideas around automation. So I use tools like formerly ConvertKit, which is now Kit for my email marketing. I'm using Pipedrive to try to manage a pipeline of leads and opportunities. Definitely investing in a lot of technologies like Zoom and other products to try to streamline the way I work. But it's funny, like I wonder if they're just like experiments and hobbies that I enjoy doing, or if they're really paying off. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah, because
it
you can
makes
suck
sense
a
to,
lot of time into it and not
yeah,
really get the output. Yeah,
it makes sense to the extent that I think that do you have to have the most fancy tools out there, or can you have simple tools? To me,
right.
as long as they do the job now, you got to have some CRM to manage your list of contacts. It just makes it easier that way. But yeah, from my perspective,
Yeah,
if the tool just goes beyond what you're using, then yeah, you're just paying
yeah.
for
Well,
nothing.
and it's funny too. It's like you think of a CRM and you can have your clients in and move them through state phases in a pipeline and keep track of where they are. And like it's all really, really helpful, but it's also a lot of work to get set up. And like what's happened with things like keeping client notes in a CRM, well, I can also just keep them in Apple Notes, right? And find them just as quickly. So, and if you're working with maybe 50 one-on-one clients in a year or,
Hmm.
so I don't know how many, you have, it's like that's not that many to sort through.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of people are exploring, and I've been guilty of this too, exploring like how can I scale, and I need to have these systems so I can scale. It's like,
Yeah,
but you don't really. It's only 30 people or
yeah.
50 people you're
You're not
working with.
scaling to 1,000 or something.
Yeah, yeah. And even if you're like going out and giving speeches and stuff, maybe it's like 20 a year. So
Hmm.
it's questionable. But I have to admit, I still love the tools and exploring them, and I'm a bit of a tech geek.
Yeah.
But I do want to give credit to like I think the best investment I made without a doubt is investing in coaching for myself. I've always found that like finding people that are ahead of you in the curve and can provide not only coaching but mentoring and guidance and share what they've done has been super important. And the one program that's been the best payoff for me is, and a lot of people here in the United States aren't aware of it, but it's the Thought Leaders Business School run out of Australia by Matt Church. And a couple things that are really, really amazing about it is, one, the community is incredibly active. There's sessions that he's offering all the time. You can have one-on-one conversations with him throughout the year. He really invests in trying to understand your practice and what's unique about you. And the thing I love about it too is and this was a big breakthrough for me when I started it over 4 years ago. The big breakthrough was, you're not running a business, you're running a practice. And there's a distinction, right? Where you're like the surgeon who's doing surgery. You're not the people doing all the back office work. But the other big one is, you're not just a coach, or you're not just a speaker or a trainer or a facilitator. You are all of you. If you want to have a commercially successful practice, you should be doing a little bit of all of those things. And that's helped me tremendously, because I think a lot of people in the coaching world, and I was guilty of this, it's like, I want to coach, I want to coach, I want to coach, I want to coach. And the industry is kind of flooded with that. And the angle that Matt brings, which I think is really powerful, is you have to be about something and you have to bring something to the table, right? Some unique message that you're sharing with the world. And his program and the people in it, all the other people that are students in it as well, have been so supportive and helping me grow and discover what that is for me. And that's where kind of Subtle Shifts was born, was through that, realizing I needed something and what am I really about, and exploring those deeper questions has been without a doubt the best investment I've made.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And actually, as you were saying that you're not just a coach and mentioning speaking facilitation, what I found is interesting, because I hadn't noticed until you said it. It has been a trend with a lot of coaches that I interview, especially in the executive coaching field, that they also do a lot of speaking, and they do a lot more than just executive coaching. So it's interesting. It's speaking definitely is something that people invest on, getting better. Coaches invest a lot on speaking and just trying to get better in there, either going to Toastmasters or like making sure that they can improve that skill set. It's interesting. I haven't noticed that before. I definitely should go in for my report. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I hope it would be useful to you. That's great.
Cool. Now, the other thing is, I wanted to look into what is the challenge right now in your business that you're trying to solve for. And you can think of it like, obviously your time could be one of it, that from what I'm hearing, but what do you think would be a challenge?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for me is building a support team around me, without a doubt. And it's this, I remember when I left my last, I tell people my last real job, right? I had a team of like 50 people. I had a massive program I was running across the executive branch of the federal government. And the last thing I wanted to do was have a team, right? I was just kind of burnt out and fried.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to like do one-on-one work and help people and work in a more, intimate setting rather than a bureaucratic setting. It's funny, it's taken me 12 years, but I'm definitely at a point now where I'm like, I really, not only do I need a team, and I know that cognitively,
mm-hmm.
I want to build a team of support around me that can help me deliver even more value and service to my clients and others and expand that. So that, without a doubt, is the big thing. I realize Dan Sullivan talks about the term, he uses, rugged individualist. And I've been a rugged individualist for too long here. I'm ready to kind of start loosening up on that and bringing people into the fold.
I'm glad that is changing and you're thinking of more growth. And it's also good to be doing it one-on-one for a while, maybe. Just makes sense. So my final question before you can go golfing is, what advice would you like to give to other coaches just like yourself that want to scale their impact?
Yeah, I would definitely go back to what I was sharing a minute ago. Don't think of yourself as just a coach. You're so much more than that. The truth is, every one of us has a message inside of them that needs to get out into the world. That's the source of our purpose. I think life in many ways is discovering what that is and bringing it to fruition. And I think that's our job, is to share that with the world. So to stop thinking of yourself as just a coach and try to explore along the fringes how you can get your message out into the world through other modes like facilitation or speaking or coaching or having a podcast, Rexhen, like what you guys are doing. There's so many ways today to get that out, but discovering that and then bringing it out into the world is, I think, really how you're gonna really scale up your impact.
Thank you so much, Matt. For anyone who's listening, wants to find you or connect with you, they can go into LinkedIn. They'll find you at Matt Cross. Is also a website. I want to make sure that I say that correctly. What is the website URL?
Yeah, so the website is mattcross.com, mattcross.com. And if people want to check out the book, they can just go to mattcross.com/book to learn about subtle shifts. And I also have a newsletter. So if people want to connect with me in any way, that's the best way to do that. And be happy to have you as part of that community. I write every week and share some ideas around subtle shifts and subtle shifts that we can be making. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Matt. And thank you for coming to the show. It was a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Hey, thank you. It was my pleasure. Take care.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.